Photoshop's generative fill function is a lot of fun. It can be very helpful. It allows you to create and edit images in ways that might have taken longer in the past or that might not have existed. Here's a photo of a Scottish countryside. So I make a selection someplace and tell it to make me a red house. And after a few seconds, it will hit me with a few red houses. This first one's not that great, but it gives you variations on the right. And the second one actually looks pretty good. You can also get a little funky with it and use your imagination to make some weirder stuff and decide that you want a purple face-eating monster here. But I find myself using generative fill most often for really mundane and practical reasons. So earlier this week, I needed to turn in a headshot for my work, and I was filtering through a bunch of photos, and I came upon this one. I like this one of my partner and I on the Thames River. If I were to think about cropping down just my head for a headshot, I'm going to be clipping this forehead, and it's going to ultimately look like a pretty weird decision to crop that. So instead, I'll use generative fill to remove the person and hopefully fill in that space with something that resembles what the river would look like if I was there alone. To do this, I'm simply going to open the photo in Photoshop, and I'm going to turn my background layer, which is not editable, into a layer by double-clicking, and that allows me to have an editable layer. And I'm going to go up to my Object Selection tool and make sure that my Add to Selection setting is clicked, and as you move your mouse around, you can see your cursor around the image. It'll start to pick up things. So I'm going to select her and also select her sunglasses, which seem to not pick up the first time. And then I've got a little bit of a few things that are not selected. So I could clean that up a little bit. I'm not too worried about it, but I can go to my marquee tool and making sure that I'm still on Add to Selection, I can just drag it over the parts that didn't seem to get picked up on her glasses, and then I can go to Subtract from Selection and grab my magnetic lasso tool and just drag it along her hairline and get rid of the selected part that seems to be what's really my backpack there. And drag a circle around it, double click to close that loop, and now we have a much slightly tighter selection there. So now I'll go up to Edit and Generative Fill, and it will ask me to fill in what I'm looking for. And as with any AI, this might take a little bit of fine tuning, take a few tries before you get what you're looking for. If I say make this person disappear, it always throws this warning up that this command does not adhere to the guidelines. So then we can try something else, like fill this area in with the river and see what happens there. And it's done a pretty good job. There's a really weird railing that doesn't seem to fit, but we didn't really give it much to go off of because she had covered up most of the other railing. But considering that all I need is that one square around my head, this would actually do a decent job. I don't know where these other people came from, but we could fine tune that by changing our dialogue and our request. And after messing around with a few different prompts, I found that the easiest and most successful path would be to just simply say remove. And it did a pretty good job here with filling some spaces in. If you don't like what you got, you can always say generate again, which is what I'll do here. And a good amount of the space, it always has some kind of aberration. If you look back at the bridge, sometimes it's not very convincing. If you also look at the way the water lays out, no one's going to be fooled that this is, especially that, the best image ever, but it does the trick for what I need. So now that I have a few options, I'm just going to choose one that looks pretty good around the area of my face, and I can use my marquee tool to drag a selection for where I want my headshot to be, say crop, and then save, and I'm done.